I knew Lily was about to try to bury me the second the conference room lights dimmed. She stood at the front with a polished smile and a clicker in her hand, and behind her, my quarterly logistics report lit up the screen like an indictment. Red circles marked inefficiencies, yellow boxes labeled critical errors, green highlights showcased her so-called corrections. "As you can see," she said in that sugar-sweet voice she used when she wanted to sound gracious while drawing blood, "Mandy's procurement forecasts consistently deviated from standard modeling by an average of 14%. That kind of variance creates major risk exposure." Around the table, the executives leaned in. A few nodded. The CEO sat at the head of the table, expression unreadable. Lily's uncle. I kept my face still, but inside, something twisted hard in my chest. She was using my own data, stripping it of context, flattening months of work into a performance about my incompetence. 3 months of late nights, custom algorithms, and modeling refinements that had saved the company millions on the Northpoint account, and there she was turning it into a public lesson on why I couldn't be trusted. Then she clicked to the next slide. When adjusted back to traditional predictive models, the variances disappear completely, she said. It's clear Mandy's unconventional methods were not only inaccurate, but potentially costly. We could have lost the entire contract if we'd followed this structure. Someone near the middle of the table murmured agreement. Another executive gave a soft, approving clap. Lily paused long enough to enjoy it. "Moving forward," she said, "I recommend adopting my revised procurement protocol. I've already begun implementation testing. Early results show a 12% efficiency improvement." This time, the applause was real. Then the CEO smiled faintly and said, "Excellent initiative, Lily. We need this kind of precision." That hurt more than I expected. Not because he believed her. Men like him always believed what was convenient. It hurt because she didn't even understand the work she was stealing. When she finally asked, "Does anyone have questions?" she looked straight at me with fake politeness, already waiting for me to get emotional and destroy my own credibility for her. I smiled. "Not yet," I said softly. "Please continue." That unsettled her. I could see it in the tiny flicker around her mouth. When she finished and the lights came back up, the CEO turned to me. "Mandy, you've been quiet. Anything you'd like to add?" I stood slowly, palms resting against the table, and kept my voice calm. "Just one question." Lily tilted her head like she was indulging me. I pointed to her final slide. "Can you explain why your corrected model excludes the proprietary variable Northpoint specifically requested in their contract brief?" The room went still. Lily blinked. "I'm sorry. What variable?" I stepped closer, my tone even. "The adaptive freight volatility coefficient. The one Northpoint's head of logistics requested after last quarter's shipping delays. The one that made standard forecasting obsolete." A murmur moved around the room. The COO frowned. "Wait, was that part of the initial scope?" "Yes," I said. "I presented the integration plan in our kickoff meeting. Lily was there. She signed off on it." Lily's confidence cracked. "That adjustment wasn't finalized," she said too quickly. "It was finalized," I replied. "In writing. It's the entire reason my numbers deviated from textbook standards. They weren't supposed to follow textbook standards. They were built for Northpoint's adaptive network strategy." I looked back at the screen. "You removed the very feature that secured our renewal." Silence dropped like glass. The CEO turned sharply toward his assistant. "Pull up the Northpoint project brief." As the document appeared on the screen and the language confirmed exactly what I'd said, the color drained from Lily's face. No one applauded then. No one looked at me with pity anymore. The meeting ended in a silence so heavy it felt ceremonial. The CEO said only, "We'll discuss this further," and walked out. Lily waited until the room had nearly emptied before turning to me, voice tight. "You could have clarified that earlier. Instead, you let me walk into that blind." I met her gaze. "You presented my work as your own. If you'd asked instead of assumed, you wouldn't have walked in blind." She stormed out without another word. The next morning, the office felt different. Conversations stalled when I passed. Analysts gave me quick, hidden smiles. My inbox was full. Some messages congratulated me on my composure. Others were more careful. One came from our COO asking me to review every figure in the Northpoint model before next week's renewal presentation. No apology. No acknowledgement of what Lily had done. Just quiet damage control. At lunch, my colleague Jenna sat across from me and lowered her voice. "You know her uncle pushed to put her on that account, right?" I looked up. "He personally vouched for her," she said. "Said she needed exposure to high-level strategy. That's how she got access to your work." That was the moment the whole thing sharpened. It wasn't just Lily being ambitious. It was nepotism with a corporate smile. She hadn't wandered into my lane by accident. She'd been placed there, protected there, and when she failed, I had no doubt they'd find a way to protect her again. That afternoon, I spent an hour walking Director Hale through every detail of my model. He listened carefully, then leaned back and sighed. "You were right," he said, "and Lily was so eager to prove herself she nearly damaged the account that made this company millions." Then his voice dropped. "Off the record, keep your head down. You embarrassed her in front of her uncle, even unintentionally. That doesn't go away easily in this place." That evening, long after most of the floor had emptied, an anonymous message popped up on my internal chat. "You think you've won something? This isn't over." No name, no profile photo, but I didn't need either. I stared at it for a moment, then closed my laptop. What unsettled me wasn't the threat. It was the access. Anonymous internal messaging required privileges most people didn't have, which meant Lily still did. The next morning, the CEO called a company-wide town hall. I knew before he spoke exactly what was coming. He stood on stage in the atrium with Lily beside him, looking polished and composed, as if she hadn't humiliated herself in front of the board 2 days earlier. "We're pleased to announce a restructuring of the Analytics and Procurement Division," he said. "Going forward, Lily will be taking a leadership role in the newly formed Strategic Initiatives Group, overseeing all external client models, including Northpoint." Polite applause. My stomach went cold. I was the one who built that model. I was the one who kept that account from collapsing. And now, under the soft camouflage of restructuring, I was being removed from my own work. Then came the final insult. "Mandy's expertise has been invaluable," the CEO added. "She'll continue contributing as senior analyst on the internal logistics optimization team." A demotion, public and deliberate. By the end of the day, I had an email instructing me to transfer all Northpoint materials to Lily's team. I read it 3 times, then stood up and did exactly what they asked. At 5 o'clock, I carried the project files to Lily's new office. She was on the phone laughing when I arrived, and the second she saw me, she rearranged her face into professionalism. "Thanks for dropping those off," she said. "I know this transition must be difficult." I placed the folder on her desk. "It isn't difficult," I said. "It's temporary." She smiled. "Temporary?" "Yes," I said, "because the one thing you can't restructure is the truth." For the first time, her smirk slipped. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, I replayed every file transfer, every conversation, every expression. Then I remembered something important. The Northpoint models weren't static. Because they were proprietary client work, I had built them with a calibration sequence tied to my credentials. Every 2 weeks, the system required authentication to maintain data integrity. Without it, the forecasts would slowly revert, producing unstable outputs. It wasn't sabotage, it was standard protection. Lily wouldn't know that. And if she tried to present those models as her own, they would fail in public. Still, I didn't want chaos for the sake of chaos. I wanted proof. The next morning, I went to IT, under the pretense of cleaning up project permissions before my transition. One of the senior techs pulled up the logs for me. Lily had accessed the Northpoint folder late the previous night. She had copied multiple datasets, and she had exported them to an external USB device. I thanked him calmly, walked out, and felt my pulse pounding all the way down the hall. There it was. Not suspicion, evidence, From that point on, I stopped reacting and started documenting. I built a private audit file containing everything. The original project brief showing my authorship, email chains proving Lily had been present for the contract requirements, system logs showing her unauthorized access, export records tied to the external device, and time-stamped documentation of the calibration sequence registered under my credentials. Then I encrypted it and set up a timed release. If anything happened to my access, the file would automatically be forwarded to compliance and to Northpoint's head of analytics. I wasn't creating drama. I was creating a witness. The following week, Lily moved through the office like she'd already won. She sent company-wide updates with her new title under her name. The CEO praised her initiative every chance he got. To anyone watching from the outside, it looked like she had recovered beautifully. But Jenna stopped by my desk one afternoon with 2 coffees and one piece of information I needed. "She's presenting the Northpoint quarterly report to the client on Friday," she said quietly. "And she's promising an improved algorithm she developed herself. They're streaming it live to the board." Perfect. A public stage. Friday morning, the office buzzed like it was hosting a coronation. The CEO himself had invited the board and Northpoint's representatives to watch Lily unveil her innovation. I watched from the break room with a few other analysts. On the screen, Lily stood in the conference room beside the projection screen, all navy silk and practiced confidence. "Today," she said smoothly, "I'll demonstrate a refined version of our volatility and freight forecasting model, one that outperforms traditional predictive tools by nearly 20%. The first few minutes went flawlessly. Then the first graph flickered. Lily frowned, but kept going. The next slide loaded with numbers that made no sense. A trend line reversed. The room shifted. She clicked again. This time, the graph appeared with red error bars scattered across it like bloodstains. The CEO leaned forward. "Why is the output showing a 48% discrepancy?" Lily stared at the screen. I don't understand. It worked in testing." Director Hale stepped to the console. A few seconds later, his voice cut through the room. "Sir, the authorization key in use belongs to Maya Bennett. She's the registered developer of this algorithm." That was it. The silence that followed wasn't confusion anymore. It was recognition. The board saw it. Northpoint saw it. Her uncle saw it. Lily's face collapsed in real time. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Stay near your desk. CEO wants to see you immediately." When I walked into his office, the energy had changed completely. The CEO sat behind his desk, expression carved from stone. Director Hale stood beside him with a stack of reports. Lily was already there, mascara smudged, hands trembling as she twisted a ring on her finger. "Sit down, Maya," the CEO said. Director Hale opened the file. "We reviewed the system logs. The algorithm used during this morning's presentation was your proprietary model. It was accessed from Lily's account without authorization." The CEO turned to his niece. "Is that true?" Lily swallowed. "I thought it was company property. I didn't realize." "Stop," he snapped. "You had no authorization to use another employee's locked model or to copy client data to a personal device." He threw the IT report onto the desk. The room went very quiet. Then Hale turned to me. "Did you intentionally allow this failure to happen?" I met his eyes steadily. "No." The calibration followed its built-in security cycle. It requires periodic authentication for integrity, standard practice for proprietary algorithms. He nodded once. He understood exactly what I was saying. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I had simply refused to rescue someone stealing my work. Lily suddenly pointed at me. "You set me up. You made me look like a fool in front of the entire board." I didn't raise my voice. "No, Lily, you did that yourself. First when you stole my work in the boardroom, then when you stole it again in front of the client." Her uncle cut her off with a glare so sharp she physically recoiled. "Enough. Leave your badge and company devices with security. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending further review." She stared at him like she had never imagined consequences could apply to her. As she passed me, she whispered, "You'll regret this." but her hands were shaking so badly even she didn't believe it. After she left, the CEO looked older than I had ever seen him. "This situation has been a disgrace," he said quietly. "You should have been promoted months ago." I said nothing. A moment later, Director Hale spoke again. "We've already spoken with Northpoint. They were watching the broadcast. Their head of analytics has requested a direct meeting with you this afternoon. They want to continue the partnership under your oversight." I blinked. "After all this?" "They've extended the contract," he said, "and doubled the budget." For the first time in weeks, the weight in my chest shifted. Then the CEO straightened in his chair. "Effective immediately, I'm reinstating your position and promoting you to head of analytics." I should have felt triumphant, vindicated, victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate the trust." That afternoon, I met with Northpoint's team. Their head of analytics greeted me with a firm handshake and a look that said he valued facts more than polish. "We watched everything," he said. "What impressed us wasn't the mess, it was how you handled it." I smiled politely. "Integrity is easier to keep when you never trade it for speed." He nodded. "That's exactly why we want you leading this." When the meeting ended, I stood by the window for a long moment, looking out over the city. 7 years of quiet work, one public humiliation, one stolen presentation, one careful question. That was all it took to expose everything. People like Lily always think power belongs to the loudest person in the room, the best smile, the right last name, the fastest lie. But power built on performance cracks the moment truth asks it to explain itself. And maybe that was the real ending. Not that I won. Not that she lost. Just that, in the end, the truth didn't need me to scream for it. It only needed me not to look away.